Here, James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS live for Monday. James, kicking off the week strong here with a nice solid slate of games on tap here. 8 games. We had 9 games. We already had one game kind of banged out due to weather. That was the Phillies and the White Sox. So down to 8 games. You were the man on the playbook today, man. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. Wheelhouse slate, as we like to call it here, John. And anything under 10 games is comfortable. It makes it a little more challenging when you look at the slate and you remove one game immediately and then another game is Coors Field, right? So,
Right.
um, down to an 8-game slate, one of which being Coors is interesting. At least we don't have Coors and Great American, and all the pitching part or all the hitters haven on one slate, but it's a good slate. We have some good offenses in play, some bad offenses in good hitting environment, as we just alluded to. And we have the best pitcher in the game and then a bunch of whole tier 2 guys as well. So fun slate overall. And I'm interested in playing. John, what do you think, initial look on cores, anything from the podcast this morning to today, this afternoon, this evening change? Are you still
No, nothing
invested
is
in course?
No, nothing has changed for me. Obviously, it's Coors Field. We're going to want to have some interest in it. We did the podcast this morning, obviously, and we really dove into the Kyle Freeland matchup. And we've talked about how so far Coors Field there haven't been the greatest opponents per se. We've had the Nationals, we had the Cardinals, which worked out. And now we have the Pirates here, and we don't generally look at the Pirates as a team to stack, especially since they lost O'Neal Cruz, kind of took out some thump to that lineup. But in the right spot, in the right environment, Coors Field gives everybody obviously an offensive bump. But then we looked a little bit deeper into Kyle Freeland and the numbers that he's put up this year. And surface level, they look great. You look a little deeper, and they're not so great. Is under 2 ERA at home is paired with a near 5 xFIP. He's at a 51% hard ball rate. He's got a 51% fly ball rate, but he's only given up 2 home runs. He has a 100% strand rate, which is impossible, right? To hold on to. So there's a lot of numbers with Kyle Freeland that we're expecting to eventually go the opposite direction. Now, pitchers have been able to go many stretches of during a season
Right.
pitching against what the sabermetrics suggest. But when they do eventually blow up, they blow up in a big way. It's not guaranteeing that tonight is the night. Freeland could go out there. All those numbers could hold out because it's Pittsburgh. But we certainly think that they're a viable stack too because of the pricing. We looked at DraftKings.
Right.
Generally, we get a huge price bump on opponents. We saw that, with the for the most part with the Cardinals, all their top price guys, very hard to stack and get around. Not so much for Pittsburgh. Outside of Brian Reynolds, you're getting a really good value on a lot of that team. So with early look at rostership percentages and the way we're looking at that game to be going, I do think that Pittsburgh is still one of our favorites, stack twos per se on the slate.
Yeah, and it's chalky as per,
Right.
expected. So
Yeah. 100%. James, anything in Vegas worth taking a look at here? Anything's changed since this morning? Any notables outside of course, the 11 run total that we got with Coors Field?
nothing's really changed. There's no big time favorites outside of Jacob deGrom. The only current pitcher and team over a minus 150 favorite is Jacob deGrom minus 210 in DraftKings Sportsbook. Max Fried in the Braves minus 145. Corbin Burns minus 150. Dustin May 150. There's no big favorites today. So Jacob deGrom is the only thing that really Jacob deGrom and his team the only ones that stand out on the money line. In terms of run line, or in terms of total, nothing either. It's at 12 in Pittsburgh, Colorado, so it's moved up half a run, which is kind of typical for that game environment. But there's nothing else that is worth noting. There's no other weather concerns that we have to take a look at. So it's pretty much just the analysis from here.
Right. No, 100%. Let's get into it. You mentioned, Jacob deGrom, massive favorite here. Strikeout prop today sitting at 8.5. He went over that total in his last start against Kansas City when he took the mound. Doing the PrizePicks video for today, my jaw kind of hit the floor here. Jacob deGrom is a 40% strikeout rate. That is a absurd number. We know he's an elite strikeout guy, which makes sense, obviously, to have such a high number like that. But now we're looking on for DFS purposes. $10,100 on DraftKings, on FanDuel. He's right up there among the highest price pitchers on the slate. Strikeouts are what you need to win GPP tournaments here. He has the highest strikeout ceiling of anybody on the board. And that's why if you go to the draft percentage forecast or over Fantasy Alarm, you see Jacob deGrom is the highest expected rostered pitcher on the slate. And it's really not even close.
Yeah. And to be honest, he's probably $1,000 to $1,500 too cheap. We talked about it this morning. This is one of the only times we have remaining, unless pricing is going to just continue to be this soft moving forward. I know we're only in week 3, but come on, this is the best pitcher in baseball. And now we've gotten 20 strikeouts and 2 walks over his last 13 innings. The first start, yeah, sure. He did not look good. Look what he's done the last 2 starts. The first start doesn't even matter at this point. He just faced this KC offense. We talk about value plays, and typically they fit into this mold where it's oh yeah, value play is this price. Jacob deGrom is a value essentially at 10.1K because he has a 50-point fantasy ceiling. I love Jacob deGrom. I'm not alone. He's going to be the most popular rostered pitcher on the slate, and it's 100% warranted. KC is striking out a lot this year against righties, against lefties, against whoever. So, give me all the Jacob deGrom and cash and tournaments and move on from there.
Yep. We talked again, we talked on the podcast this morning here. When it comes down to the next tier that we're looking at, sure, if you want to go Gausman against Houston, you certainly can. We know the upsides there. We just saw a really good pitcher, hold down, Houston at time, just in their most recent series here. Not going to hold it against you to go Kevin Gausman if you want to try to double spend up. But we keyed on Corbin Burnes here at $8,800. Seattle, in Seattle, it's a good pitching environment. There's a couple guys obviously in Seattle that are hot. Jared Kelenic, one of them, obviously right now. But Corbin Burnes coming off of his best start of the year, 8 shutout, 3 hits, 8 strikeouts, no walks. And then you pointed out, today, looking at his strikeout prop, was sitting at 6.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook at the over set at -160. So a pretty heavy favorite for over 6.5 strikeouts here today for Corbin Burnes. You look at him as also, again, a potential favorite on this slate with Chris Flexen on the opposite side of him. $8,800 Corbin Burnes. We said it last time out. He is not a guy that should be priced in the 8K range. These guys are kind of asleep at the wheel, so take advantage of the low pricing while you can.
Yep. And pretty much insert what we said about deGrom's price here. This is another case of soft pricing where he's closer to a 10K pitcher than he is a 9K pitcher. I'll tell you that. So, he has elite strikeout upside. -160 at 6.5 is not something you typically see. Seattle 23.3% K rate. They're not it's not a massive high ceiling in terms, but 23% strikeout rate is pretty solid for Burnes facing up against their offense. Less than a 700 OPS as a team against right-handed pitching. That's 19th in the league. I love Corbin Burnes. He is my second favorite pitcher. You mentioned you can go to Gausman. I don't feel the need to, especially if you're paying up for deGrom. I think we both understand Christian Javier has a high ceiling that he hasn't really flashed this year.
And he's actually had easy matchups and hasn't gotten there yet. So it would be a surprise to see him hold down Toronto. We just saw Shane McClanahan do it, but McClanahan, I would put that tier above Christian Javier in terms of consistency with pitching. But Javier could go out here and just absolutely dominate. We saw him go through that stretch last year where he was, the best pitcher in baseball, basically. Him and, Dylan Cease just trading off of, consecutive, no run, 1 run, 10 strikeout outings. But it doesn't feel like the spot to use him. If you're making multiple lineups tonight, you want to go Christian Javier in GPPs, certainly do it. You could do it. He's not going to be rostered by anybody, because Burnes is right there below him. What are your thoughts on guys like Dustin May? I know you've been high on this year. Max Fried coming back from the injury against San Diego. finishing off that 8K tier.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin May is okay. The Mets have not been great against right-handed pitching. They rank in the bottom 10 in the league. But what they do is drive pitch counts up. I mean, they have a 15%, let me round up, 16% walk rate. It's 15.9. That is the highest in the league. Dustin May coming off a start in which he walked 4. I mean, if we talk about this extensively when it comes to Dodgers pitchers, if their pitch count is up, Dustin May has now thrown 84, 83, 77. And we talked about this going into the last start where it's like, well, he was at 83. There's only room to go up, right? Well, no. Like, if he gets in trouble, Dave Roberts there's no leash on any pitcher that Dave Roberts manages. So if the Mets continue to drive Dustin May's pitch count up here, who's to say he even gets through 5 innings? He's the favorite here, and he should be. They're home. The Mets are a bottom 10 in offense against right-hand pitching. I'm just a little worried he doesn't get deep enough into this game.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a potential there because, like you said, driving up that pitch count is pretty crazy. Jack Flaherty is the other guy in this mid-tier range that we talked about. Straighten up the control problems in his most recent start. Just 1 walk in Colorado, 5 1/3 innings pitched there, 6 strikeouts. Going up against Arizona, we just saw Arizona light up Sandy Alcantara yesterday, though. So the question is, how confident are you in Jack Flaherty at $7,800? Him being home, I think, helps a little bit here. And are you worried about Arizona's offense? They have guys in that lineup that you and I do like.
So, yes, I am worried slightly, and no, I'm not shying away from using Flaherty because I think it's still kind of a misprice. I think when the dust settles and he's actually healthy and pitching every 5th day like he is now, he's more of an 8K pitcher, mid 8Ks, high 8Ks. He does have strikeout upside. We've seen that, just his last start. He limited walks, and what does he do? He has 6 strikeouts. And, it doesn't look like they're totally comfortable with him getting to 100 pitches, but you and I dissected his last start in Colorado. He got into trouble in the 6th, and as soon as that trouble comes around in a 1-run game, he's out. So maybe he does. If doesn't get in that trouble, maybe he does once again get into the mid-90s in pitches. So much softer matchup than it was in Coors last time out. I mean, Toronto, Milwaukee, Colorado in Coors is not the easiest, start to a season. Mostly worrying about Corbin Carroll of all Arizona batters right now. But yeah, I like Jack Flaherty, 7,800. I think there's upside. We talked about it on the podcast this morning. Arizona has the lowest walk rate in baseball against righties. Jack Flaherty, even if he doesn't have his best stuff and isn't commanding the strike zone, he might just get Arizona swinging because that's what they do. They just are a free swinging team. They're not striking out all that much, but if they're just putting the ball in play on bad pitches, and typically if you're putting the play on, but it's not like you're gonna make great contact. So I do like Jack Flaherty, bet 78, and he's the one that stands out the most for me at the bottom of this pitcher's position.
I find it a little interesting, again, looking at some of the projected rostership numbers there. Hayden Wesniewski is kind of looking like the punt play for many. I understand Oakland is sort of the punching bag, but we kind of broke it down a little bit yesterday where we think that there's some guys in that lineup slowly coming to life. Brent Rooker obviously hitting just for a lot of power. Estorio Ruiz, can be a nightmare on the base paths. Are you surprised that people would be interested in Wesniewski here?
A little bit. And the thing is, that is solely based on 1, facing Oakland, 2, being in Oakland, right? Those 2 things combined. And probably 3, after Jack Flaherty, it's Kyle Freeland's pitching in Coors. Merrill Kelly has the Cardinals, even though there's no Paul Goldschmidt. David Peterson gets Dodgers. Muller, gets the Cubs, who are sneaky good. Rich Hill, there's no one really else. I don't have any interest in Wesniewski, though, because not only does he have a 7.5 ERA, John, his expected ERA is 10.78. His FIP is 11.4. Things are only getting worse for him. He has a walk per 9 of 9. He has a strikeout per 9 of 6. Those two things are backwards. I mean, even if his walk per 9 was 6, that's still atrocious. And I know this is all a small sample, but a 50% home run to fly ball ratio, 4.5 home runs per 9.
Right.
He pitched in that terrible Wrigley win game against the Mariners, and I understand it, but like he wasn't good in his other start either.
Yeah.
What do we like here?
I think it's purely the big ballpark, and it's Oakland. I think that people are looking at this spot, realizing that most pitchers have success against Oakland, and they're willing to kind of throw it out there. From a talent standpoint, like Mueller, I think is the better pitcher in this matchup.
Yeah.
He's obviously got the tougher spot going up against Chicago, but I'm with you. I don't, we're looking at, I'm seeing 13% percentage rostership on him. If that's true, I will take the field taking 13% on him for sure, because I've comfortably built lineups with deGrom and Burns today, and I didn't feel like I had a stretch to get there. Ryan in the chat says he can't seem to get away from it. I'm with you there. I don't find myself getting away really from deGrom and Burns. We talked about it. We're talking about 3 starting pitchers I like today. It's deGrom locked in, and then I made a Burns lineup. I made a Flaherty lineup. So, for me, that's kind of the 3 pitchers I've used. Excuse me. If I was making, a 20 max, yeah, I'd sprinkle in some Gossman. I'd sprinkle in some Javier, but I really wouldn't go much further down than that. So I was a little surprised just to see that. And it kind of goes to show, people look at matchups against Oakland and they just see, the green light. Then go ahead, throw them out there. More often than not, you'll be good. This guy just hasn't shown that ability yet. So,
yeah, I mean, I pitched the idea to you on the podcast this morning that I like Jordan Lyles, and I haven't really backed away from that in terms of just a tournament dart. Like, I would rather play Jordan Lyles than Wisniewski, and I know the matchup is obviously not like the best, but we've already seen Jordan Lyles with 9 strikeouts in a game this year. He has not, he needs to stay away from the home run ball at the end of the day. That's what Jordan Lyles has really struggled with. Texas has hit righties at a fairly solid clip, including Jordan Lyles a few days ago. But 23.8% K rate can be exploited. They're 12th in OPS. Like, that's pretty good. They don't really walk a lot, and that's like obviously good. But like, I'm willing to take a shot on Lyles at his price over Wisniewski, who has done literally nothing this year that warrants 13%.
Right. Yeah, I'm fully with you there. We got our guy Ice Throughs in the chat asking about Simeon. You're talking Texas today. He's got a good BVP in his matchup. I know you're a big Nathaniel Lowe guy as we kind of move around here. But you are talking Jordan Lyles. So the BVP there, obviously with Simeon, 10 of 20, hitting 500. I'm fine going up against Lyles if you're not playing Lyles, of course, right? Like it's one or the other. So James likes Lyles as a sort of spend down dart throw. He's not calling him a core play by any stretch of the imagination. No. He just thinks that if you're making a bunch of lineups and you had to find a value guy to spend down on, then Jordan Lyles could be your guy there. So, a Javier Lyles stack will be 2% combined. I joke, but I don't imagine many people would have that combo out there, for your lineups. Javier probably could have some decent rostership tonight just because of the price point. Less than Burns, people looking to pivot off. But yeah, no one's going to play Jordan Lyles more than 3 or 4% probably. So if you're stacking against them, that's fine. No arguments there. And I think finding that second stack today is going to be the difference maker for you, because you look at the rostership of Coors Field games. A lot of people are on Colorado. A lot of people are on Pittsburgh, and for right reasons. It's finding that alternative stack to go with them. You have Ronald Acuna on the cover of your playbook, so I got a feeling
Ozzie Albies.
Oh, sorry. You have Ozzie Albies on the cover of your playbook today, so I have a feeling maybe Atlanta is a direction that you're going to be taking a peek at today, which brings us to catcher then. Sean Murphy's in the lineup. He's 4,400. We think Sean Murphy's in the lineup. Should be, right? $4,400 going up against a lefty here since d'Arnaud's been down. He's been an absolute monster at the plate over his last 10 games. 333, 3 homers, 12 RBIs in 10 games, 7 runs scored. The Atlanta offense is raking, and Sean Murphy is a big reason for it.
Yeah, he is hitting fourth. Braves lineup officially out. Ozzie Albies hitting fifth. So yeah, I like Murphy as a pivot off of the guy at 3,700 who's going to be the chalk catcher of the slate. I'm seeing he's one of the highest rostered plays of the slate in Elias Diaz. So
for good reason. The man's hitting 360.
For very good reason. And he's hit lefties extremely well. So I like Murphy as a contrarian play. There is a lot of numbers suggesting Ryan Weathers is going to regress. He has been pretty good to start the year. But it's, his expected ERA or his Sierra, his xFIP are 2 to 3 runs higher than his ERA. So, I think Sean Murphy is a good play, banking on the Weathers regression here. Elias Diaz is just obviously the chalk at 3,700. It's not even close. He's raked at core. He's hitting 500 at cores. I know it's a very small sample, but we've seen him hit well at cores in years past, hitting right in the middle of the lineup. Rich Hill just getting demolished by right-handed pitching to start this year.
I don't know how long Rich Hill is going to be for this game. So get him a couple innings and get your runs in, and then you get the Colorado bullpen, which you can certainly go at. We like talking Jonah Heim again. If you want to go down there and just be a little bit contrarian, he also is hitting fifth for Texas. He's $3,200, but we haven't seen obviously the Cubs lineup come out. Won't come out for a bit. Well, we did have interest in Yan Gomes here, $2,600. A guy that again historically hits left-handed pitching really well. Had a double home run game already just a few nights ago. He's had 3 straight games with a hit. So Yan Gomes here at $2,600 is probably a pretty strong punt play tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to pivot off Elias Diaz? Then yeah, you save $1,000 going to Yan Gomes. If you don't want to pivot off Elias Diaz, don't, because Elias Diaz is a great play in that mid tier. But if you are pivoting off Elias, I do think Yan Gomes makes the most sense. I know Gabriel Moreno hitting 7th is a little interesting. He's been hitting 8th. 7th is a nice spot in the lineup for him. If you want to do like a little end of your Arizona lineup stack, right? Like Corbin Carroll's hitting 5th. So you do like Carroll, who's hitting 6th here?
Walker, maybe?
Even Smith and like Gabriel Moreno. I don't hate that if you're not playing Flaherty. So that's a little intriguing too. 2,200.
Yeah, listen, we think Gabriel Moreno is a much better hitter than he's shown to this point. So he gets his feet wet a little bit more in Arizona. Now maybe a spot against Flaherty. If you're really looking to was
that a pool joke? Was that a pool joke because they have the pool in the outfield? Was that it?
It wasn't, but it could have been.
Oh well, missed opportunity.
It was. Michael in chat wants to know about Lang here. Is any interest there for Oakland?
Yeah. I don't dislike that. We just spent 10 minutes crapping on Wisniewski, so like Langoliers is a solid bat.
Listen, if you caught the podcast this morning, and we'll obviously touch upon it as we go down, we kind of were like joking about, but seriously, we kind of like Oakland.
You definitely came around. You definitely came around by the end of that podcast more than you started. Because you shut down the idea right away, and then as you thought about it more, I saw the
tournament player in me is like, you're probably right. No one's gonna play Oakland. Listen, if that many people are playing, Wisniewski here, then sure, Oakland's probably even less rostered, right?
The leverage. Dude, the leverage on Oakland in that spot.
The Oakland leverage against a bad pitcher. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's just how often is your winning lineup going to be a full Pittsburgh Oakland stack? Probably not many. But
I agree, but how often is one of those teams in cores and one of them against a guy with a 12 expected ERA?
True, 100% accurate there. So that's our catcher spot here. Let's go over to first base. James, we talk about it all the time. Lefty, righty, doesn't matter. We're just big Matt Olson stands on this show. The guy has done nothing but continue to mash. 5 home runs, 313 average. It's already got 17 RBIs while hitting second in this lineup. I mean, And Weathers is the cheapest pitcher on the slate for a reason. He is absolute garbage. So how are you feeling about Olsen, and where does he rank for you in the terms of top tier first baseman tonight?
Yeah, it's been unfortunate because Weathers has been pretty good to start the year. But like I said, it's another pitcher that there is regression coming sooner rather than
Yeah.
later. So I think I don't rank Olsen. I mean, I don't. So like Vladdy, I'm not really getting to. You can in tournaments, obviously, because Javier is good. Freeman, I think, is interesting, but just one home run for a guy 5,600 doesn't feel great in a lefty spot. I like CJ Cron more than Matt Olson tonight. I know CJ Cron has not been great. There has been a little more signs of life recently. I know CJ Cron profiled better against righties last year. That has not been the case for his whole career. He has been a lefty specialist. So I still rank Cron ahead of Olson. I probably still rank Pete Alonso just given how dominant Pete Alonso has been, but I have no problem getting to Olson. Um, you know, 5 home runs and 17 ribbies. The strikeouts are racking up in bunches for Olson, but we're not really worried about the strikeout stuff of Weathers either. So you have to like that. So
Yeah,
I'm probably
Weathers getting by with a 16% hard contact rate.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
his xFIP is almost 5. So there's like we said, he pitch to continue to limit that hard contact. Sure, Atlanta lineup, certainly a team that can do some damage. So a guy that is pitching with the numbers he has to be the $5,200, it kind of speaks to where we think people are. When it comes to this slate here. And I'm with you there. Listen, Cron, we know power can be there. Only 4 home runs to this point, but at home against a lefty, especially a guy like Rich Hill, where you're probably going to draw a decent rostership tonight, because it is that Coors Field game at a 12 over under. Under 5K play, who's your one or two guys that we're keying in on here?
I love Rowdy Tellez in tournaments specifically. I know Chris Flexen has been a guy that has primarily allowed a lot of damage to righties, but he has been equally as bad versus both split this year. Rowdy coming in, hits in 4 straight games, 3 multi-hit games over that span, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. Rowdy Tellez, we talked about this on the pod, right? It's like the Brewers have a ton of talent that could put it together all in one game and then go ice cold for 6 straight games. And you're like, well, I just lost a whole lot of money on the Brewers for a week. But that Monday slate, John, Monday today, where the Brewers had 11 runs. I mean, look at the run totals that they've put up this year already. We have games of 11. We have games of 9, 10, 7. And then they've been shut out 4 different times. The Brewers are an elite tournament team because it's not the best spot for hitters. It's a good pitching environment in Seattle. But Flexen has been equally as bad against lefties this year as he was as he is against righties. Yeah. I also like Carlos Santana here. We talked about Santana. He is a better hitter from the right side of the plate. Yeah. He gets the almost guaranteed regression of Kyle Freeland coming. And whether or not it's here, don't be afraid to stack against Kyle Freeland because the numbers all suggest that the regression is just imminent, right? And likely here at home, not going to pitch a 3rd straight fire start at home. So love Tellez, love Carlos Santana here in the mid-tier.
Yep, I'm with you there. And if you think Arizona's offense is good, Pavin Smith at 2,800 hitting 6th.
Yep.
Lefty against Flaherty. Again, we think Flaherty is super talented. Just the injuries have really derailed his career. Then he had 13 walks in his first 2 starts this year. But we saw what happened. He was able to control it last time out. Looked pretty good there in Coors. James and I talked about it. We kind of broke down inning by inning. Had a clean 5th, came out, gave up a single, a double, and they took him out in the 6th, and that was the end of his night. But they let him pitch pretty deep into games in the first 2 starts. So, this could be also a pretty dominating outing there. But if not, some good value potentially for him there. But that's probably it for first base for me. Anybody else for you? All righty. Second base position. You mentioned you have Ozzie Albies on the cover of your playbook, so speak to the man.
Yeah, I mean, he has long been a lefty specialist, and this year is no different, hitting 370 against lefties already. And again, it's a small sample, and it's not like anything that we're like, oh, yeah, he's just going to do it again. But like, if he's hitting 370 already this year against lefties, and he's hitting 329 for his career
I was gonna
against
say,
lefties,
yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, it just feels inevitable that he's going to continue this stretch where he's just better from the right hand side of the plate. 357 OBP is 50 points higher than it is from the left side. His slug of 556 is 120 points higher than it is from the other side of the plate. He has a 912 OPS, a 227 ISO career against lefties, a 384. Like,
Yeah.
and this is every year in, year out. As if Ozzie Albies is on the field, he has mashed lefties. He is on the field. He is once again mashing lefties, and he's hitting in the middle of this lineup. We've already talked about it extensively. Like Ryan Weathers in for regression. It's not only the XFIP, the Sierra was also 5. So yeah, I love the Braves here as a contrarian stack. I guess not necessarily contrarian. They have one of the highest implied totals on the board.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing,
you're going to see a lot of Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Colorado probably today.
Yep. Yeah. And you're going to have, I mean, you're also going to have a lot of the Pittsburgh, Colorado stacks where you're just going full game stack.
Right.
The other alternative is probably Braves. You're going to probably see good amount of Rangers because not a lot of people share the same belief in Jordan Lyles as I do. And not even that I believe in Jordan Lyles necessarily, but like, I also think Texas is missing 2 of their better hitters this year, right now at least, in Corey Seager and Mitch Garver. They're hitting Jonah Heim. They're hitting Travis Jankowski second and Jonah Heim fifth. Like that's not exactly the deepest lineup that Jordan Lyles is going through. So yeah, I think Braves are probably the alternative stack off of the chalky cores. Ozzie Albies being at the top. If I were to pick one Brave today, John, it would be Ozzie Albies.
Okay. Can you pick one Cardinal for me, Donovan or Gorman?
Oh, Gorman for sure. I know Brandon Donovan's leading off and like
first base, second base eligible, by the way.
Yeah, the eligibility is nice, and he's been a little better lately. But he got off to that smoking hot start, and then he hasn't hit a home run since like the 3rd game of the year.
Right.
And Nolan Gorman continues to hit home runs. He continues to hit for extra base hits. He, like Brandon Donovan, does have stolen base upside as well. I love this kid. The only thing that he does is strike out a bunch, but even that only strikeout per game. Like we're cutting it down a little bit there, Nolan. So I will go Nolan Gorman over Brandon Donovan for cheaper. I do acknowledge that Donovan's position eligibility is better, but it's also at first base, and that's not the best eligibility because
if you would never play Donovan over Goldie when Donovan is 4,700.
Right. So. No, never. It's like
Smith, by the way, not in the lineup.
Not in the lineup, right. But that's like how they had Gorman, Donovan, and Nolan Arenado all third base. Like you're not playing either of those guys over Nolan Arenado unless there's a fire.
Right. Unless there is a fire. That is also very true there. We talked Nico Horner, tougher to seal against a lefty, but when he gets on, he is looking to get to second base. And Mueller there, not off to a great start at $3,900 for him. And then we broke it down. You can go find the 60-second clip on Twitter right now from this morning's podcast as well. But Rodolfo Castro, James, you talked about his ridiculous split numbers here against left-handed pitching. $3,200 here. You want to kind of give the people who missed out maybe what it is we're liking about Rodolfo today?
Yeah, I mean, against left-handers last year. So I'll back it up. He had 11 home runs last year. In like 100, he had almost 300 at-bats. He had 11 home runs, which was pretty solid. That rates out to 622 home runs in full season.
Yep.
6 of those came in 85 plate appearances against lefties. He had a 600 slug, a 906 OPS, so he didn't really reach base, but everything he did was powerful. Yeah. A 338 ISO, which is ridiculous.
It's like Barry Bonds.
Yeah, and a 382 WOBA. Like this dude was unreal in the power department against lefties last year, and we've said it all along. Kyle Freeland in for regression. This is not a spot that you want to regress in against a guy who I don't think we typically think of like Rodolfo Castro as this powerful dude. I mean, he's not even playing every day, but like he's gonna play today. Well, I guess he is. He had a couple off days in the beginning of the year, but he's been playing every day.
Due to some
injury. Doing to some injuries, right? Yeah. Guy is multi-position eligible at I think 2 of the weaker positions on the board. Second base, especially second base, and both especially weak. And he has all the power against lefties. Rodolfo Castro is a plug and play for me today in cash, in tournaments, in really whatever format you're playing. So he is hitting 6th. The lineup for Pittsburgh has officially come out. Their 4-5-6 is a little interesting stack of Carlos Santana, Connor Joe, and Rodolfo Castro. I love that three-man stack of Pittsburgh right there.
Connor Joe is super cheap. We'll talk about him at outfield in a little bit.
On DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is weirdly priced.
They probably adjusted for course.
They did adjust for course. But Rodolfo Castro is one of the easiest plug and plays of the day for me.
Yep. Just below him is Mauricio Dubon. You pointed him out in the last show about him getting on base. He got on base again. It's just 1 for 5, but still now hitting leadoff today. $3,000. Tough spot, obviously going up against Gossman the way he is. But any interest in Dubon today?
I mean, you are almost surefire at least 3 fantasy points because he's hitting every game but opening day. So like mild interest, but for just a couple hundred more, you can get to Rodolfo Castro. So
and then Ha-Seong Kim's the other guy I'll just mention because the lefty's on the mound. I know Fried just coming back was the hamstring or the ankle that he was dealing with there.
Yep.
So Kim is a guy that has hit lefties pretty well, and Padres lineup can always go off. Third base. This is usually where we look to stack. Our top price guys generally in our lineups are at third. Austin Riley's $5,600. Nolan Arenado's $55. Machado's $52. Where are we looking to spend when it comes to third base today?
Yeah, I mean, I like Austin Riley quite a bit. We can keep touching on the Ryan Weathers, inevitable blow up. It could definitely come here. I love the way Austin Riley has approached his plate appearances this year. Walk rate up like 6% from a year ago, showing a lot more patience. I think that's just going to, he's being more selective and he's going to look for more pitches he likes and he's going to mash them. And I think that's an obvious spend up here. Other than that, though, I think you can get to Arenado. Merrill Kelly has been a reverse splits pitcher for a large part of a few seasons. But Arenado was really good against righties last year, so I'm not going to hate on him there. But he's not hitting behind Goldie today, so, a little less firepower.
Well, I was going to ask you, is there any Merrill Kelly appeal to no Paul Goldschmidt in the lineup for you?
Maybe that plus the fact that we don't really have Hayden Wesniewski is the highest owned cheap guy we have, so maybe. But
Arenado, by the way, 4 for 10 with a homer off Merrill Kelly in his career.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me. I don't hate it doesn't really put me on to Merrill Kelly any more than it did.
Sure. It doesn't need a long answer. I was just asking if it made any sense to you.
I don't really love the tier below Riley, truthfully. It's kind of Riley or bust, or Riley or.
Well, we got Brian Hazley enough, right?
Yeah.
$3,800. We talk Pittsburgh stacked. If you're playing it makes a lot of sense. Josh Jung's hitting cleanup against Lyles. If you're not a Lyles guy tonight and you want to stack Texas, Jung's hitting cleanup. Hard to do better than that. Montero is hitting 7th for Colorado, but he's got a lefty on the mound at $3,300. So some pretty favorable spots for those guys.
Yeah, and I'll even throw Patrick Wisdom into that fold too. I know Muller was good his first 2 starts. He struggled his last start, but Wisdom just has so much power. 28 and 25 home runs over the last 2 years, neither being full seasons, 106 and 134 games. So, both probably 30-plus home run seasons if he gets in a full campaign.
3 straight games that are home run for him right now.
And 3 straight games with a home run. So I I like the eligibility for Patrick Wisdom. I like the power equity that comes with using Patrick Wisdom. And he's like a clear pivot off Brian Hayes, who's going to be popular. Clear pivot off Josh Jung, who does profile pretty good in this spot, considering Jordan Lyles is a fly ball.
Yeah. 5-game hit
Specialist.
streak for Josh Jung here. So
Yeah.
starting to figure it out a little bit.
Yeah. Just need to cut down the strikeouts just a little bit. 5-game hit streak, 3 straight 2 strikeout games, right? And that comes with time. And so yeah, I like Jung and I like Montero as well. So you nailed the rest of that third base position.
Yep. All right, let's go on over to the shortstop position here. Guys that you can look to spend up for. We know Bichette 59 against Javier, Swanson against the righty lefty matchup in Mueller. Willie Adames, we like to talk about power, even though better hitter at home. He's got Flexen at 52, Xander against the lefty at 51. Probably not playing Bobby Witt against deGrom at 5K, but that's your top group there, 5K and above.
Yeah, so again, like the Brewers are just very interesting to me. And Chris Flexen has been a reverse splits pitcher. I know that's kind of evened out, but still righties this year, 357. I shouldn't even say they evened out. He's just bad against everyone now. But righties, 357 average, 1100 OPS, 482 WOBA against Chris Flexen. Willie Adames, all 3 of his home runs have come against righties. 388 WOBA against right-handed pitching this year. Got a thing for the Brewers today, John. Like I know we talked about it at the top with Corbin Burns, like it being a pitcher's park.
Yep.
But I feel like that plays more into when a pitcher is good.
Right.
Like if you're just bad, like Chris Flexen has been, you're just bad, right? Like Willie Adames has shown massive numbers against righties this year. 234 ISO, 388 WOBA, like the list goes on.
Sure.
I love Adames. He's my favorite 5K and above shortstop. And other than the 2 punts that one we've already talked about and one in Atlanta, like I think that this is by like far and away the worst position on the board.
Yeah. Certainly can plug Castro in at shortstop. But if you're not, Von Grissom hitting 6th tonight at $3,100. You want to double spend down at second and short. These 2 guys certainly can do it, and it'll help you spend up at the outfield position where we know there's just a lot of talent. And I'm in agreement with you. There isn't really anybody that I would give a look here in this mid-tier. Tommy Edman has the wraparound stack hitting 9th. Like, that's okay. But for the most part, I don't have a ton of interest. Taylor historically hits lefties well. You got Peterson at 35, but that kind of wraps my interest there at the shortstop position. Going on over to outfield, we do have an outfield question here. Our guy Ryan in chat wants to know: do you include Jonathan Daza in your Colorado stack, or would you play Corbin Carroll as a one-off? Both are $3,100 on DraftKings. James, this one is a pretty easy one, I think, for us.
Yeah, thank you. Here's the lob. And there's the slam dunk.
Yeah, we're doing the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade,
look back with the arms up. And it's Corbin Carroll. That's Corbin Carroll all day.
Daza just doesn't provide enough power. That's the problem for me with Daza here. Sure, it's great. It's in cores. Lefty righty matchup for him. All that's good stuff. Corbin Carroll profiles as one of the best up and coming players in baseball.
Right.
Power and speed potential for him there. It doesn't even matter if tonight Daza ends up working and Carroll doesn't. I will always play Corbin Carroll over Jonathan Daza, especially when DraftKings is asleep at the wheel. Corbin Carroll should not be $3,100. He should be a 4K outfielder minimum.
I think he's based on how like the dual threat players are priced. Like you've always been like critical of like Marcus Semien being priced where he is.
Yeah,
but he can steal 30 bases and hit 30 home runs.
He'll steal 0 bases for 4 months, and he'll steal 30 bases in the final month.
Correct, but I'm just saying, like Corbin Carroll is closer to a 5K player than he is a 3K player, and he's literally 30. He's closer to 2K than he is 5K. Like that. I mean,
right.
Jonathan, and plus, like Corbin Carroll hitting 5th, Jonathan Daza hitting 8th. Like it's just everything really lines up much better for Corbin Carroll.
100%. Moving on up back to the top of the position here, though. Ronald Acuna is $6,500. against Weathers. You talk about Albie's numbers against lefties. Acuna has some really good numbers against lefties there as well. Brian Reynolds, switch hitter, gets at 6K though. If you're fitting him in that lineup, it would make sense to play the Pittsburgh's best hitter against Kyle Freeland at 6K. You got Mookie Betts at 59. Chris Bryant is up to $5,500 in that matchup against Hill. How are you ranking out this 5K and above group?
So initially, I love Brian Reynolds, and I think he's a great play. But he definitely is better against righties. Last year, 800 plus OPS against righties, 787, so like very close against lefties. Really hard for me not to get to Acuna if I'm playing Braves. Like obviously, if I'm playing Braves, you just have to include Reynolds. Like it's like playing Yankees without Aaron Judge, right? It's like, what are you doing? Love Reynolds. I have like a weird feeling, and we've been talking about the Chris Bryant power numbers just being way down. I have a weird feeling Bryant could deposit one here. I've been more and more so gravitating towards Rockies today than I have Pittsburgh. And we've talked about this a couple times where like we always look at the visiting team more than we look at the Rockies. And like the Rockies are not great by any means, but like Rich Hill is really bad. And he's 43 years old, newly turned he just turned 43. Like the power is 3.6 home runs per 9 innings. I really like Chris Bryant as like a contrarian play. If I'm ranking them, Acuna based on upside alone 1, Reynolds 2, Bryant 3.
Ronald Acuna's numbers are gross this year, so
yeah, he is a freak of nature. He is live. Like if the power catches up a little bit, not to say like 3 is terrible, but like he could be
5 stolen bases in the last 10 games, hitting 375.
He's stupid. I mean, this could be a 30-40 guy by the end of the year, and I don't think anyone would be surprised.
Nope, I agree with you there. In this mid-tier range, not a ton of names stick out. No. You've mentioned Milwaukee a few times, but it feels like Yelich is probably a little bit too expensive. JD Martinez is $4,400 here. Tyler O'Neill's another guy that has a home run off Kelly in the St. Louis lineup. It's like 3 for 11. Nimmo, tough spot against May, so there's not for me a ton of guys here in the 4K range. It's like you go 5K and then we're just talking value, talking under 4K. Patrick Wisdom, we've talked about, has the multi-position eligibility. You can throw him out here if you want to. Jurickson Profar tonight, leading off for Colorado at $3,600, James.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Profar is if you're playing over on FanDuel, John, we talked about shortstop being,
Is he shortstop eligible out there?
Shortstop outfield on FanDuel. So if you're in those FanDuel streets, don't overlook Profar at that position, because that's obviously just another guy that's needed because there is not a lot of depth there. I fully agree. Like if you are playing Milwaukee, Yelich could be a part of that stack. I have no problem getting there. 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases. I mean, the 26 strike. I don't know what's happened. Like they need to do science experiments on him and Cody Bellinger and like
figure out what happened.
Yeah. But I agree. I think this tier is where we're going to live. Profar 36 is an elite play. Both his home runs this year come at Coors. Like it's just hitting atop the lineup. We talked about how much of a can Rich Hill is. I like Brian Anderson. I talked about the flex and splits, and Anderson gets the righty-lefty matchup here. He fits in the middle of that Brewers lineup. Connor Joe hits lefties. John mentioned on the podcast this morning, revenge narratives.
Love revenge narratives, yeah.
And as you can see in his picture, he is very happy to be a Pittsburgh Pirate.
Smiling ear to ear.
He is smiling ear to ear. He must have just seen the Vince Velasquez hype video in that picture. Getting them cheese to be but I mean Corbin Carroll 3,100. Like
Corbin Carroll, Alec Burleson down to 3,400. He spent a cup of coffee at 4K for us against Pittsburgh, most recent game. Went 0 for 2. They're like, that's enough of you at 4K. We're dropping you all the way back down. So he's 3,400.
He's been struggling though. Like I know he's
decent. Struggling. He's had 2 games this season without a hit.
Yeah, but like he also has 2 games this year with double-digit fantasy points.
Sure, but he's $3,400. He's hitting second. It's not that he's struggling. the team behind him isn't putting him in when he gets on base.
I mean,
that's a little bit to do with the guys behind him as well.
Yes, but like again, I could just pay.
I'm not saying that he's a core play. I'm just saying he's a great play at $3,400, hitting second in the Cardinals lineup.
I'm not going there, but if you want to go there, that's fine. You're it's not a bad value. It's just
it's a great value. He's a good player. The guy was just 4K yesterday. He's $3,400 today.
I agree to disagree on the great player.
All right, that's fine. Well, Kelenich's 33. He's got Burns though. If you think he can hit him, then you play him.
This guy is he's the best player in the world. I'd rather just play Corbin Carroll over all of them anyway.
Well, yes, I thought we established that already. Corbin Carroll for sure.
And the best play in the slate, 2,800 for Oakland.
It's 3,100 doesn't make any sense. Garrett Mitchell's 3K. I like Garrett Mitchell as well. Yep. 3K lefty versus righty against flex in there certainly works. I mean, Janikowski is hitting second. I'm not totally opposed to it.
No. Nope.
So there's some stolen base potential for him there.
Yeah, he's listen, again, not completely sold in Jordan Lyles. I think he's viable because the price. I don't necessarily trust Texas lineup. I don't think they're this amazing lineup. But 2,800 hitting second, that fits perfully in a Rangers.
And then listen, we joked about it on the show, but then you mentioned I kind of came around to it here. Oakland guys. Estory Ruiz is absolute lightning on the base pass when he gets there. He's got 4 stolen bases in the last 10 games. Batting average is up to 308. He's hitting 364 the last 10 games. We talked about Wisniewski and his walks so far this season, 6 walks in 2 games. Not that Oakland's walking a ton, but if they don't swing and he just puts them on base, Ruiz is a guy that can go steal multiple bags here. And then I mean, Rooker, the power is just, we had a stretch of 3 games there with 4 homers, 333 for him. We talk about how Oakland seemingly just finds these guys that randomly will hit 30 home runs in a year. It seems like it's Brent Rooker's call, at least for now, at $2,700. So we're looking at a couple of cheap Oakland A's here.
Story Ruiz, John, leading off this evening.
Yep.
Brent Rooker hitting 4th, pretty premier spots. I wish Laureano was in the lineup. I think that would have provided a little more depth. I don't love Aledmus Diaz hitting 3rd. I don't love Tony Kemp hitting 5th.
Tony Kemp is not a 5-hitter. No, sir.
No. I don't love those 2 spots, but if Ruiz sets the table, leads off the game with a base hit, I mean, we could be looking at a guy with a single, a stolen base, that is 8 fantasy points, a run scored. You're at 10 fantasy points at 2,800 before the bottom half of the inning even begins. Right.
So we got that with Jonathan India the other day.
Yep, we sure did.
Single, stolen base, then scored on a wild pitch. Boom, 10 fantasy points. And Jack in chat here, Tony Kemp is an automatic out.
You're not wrong, Jack.
Not wrong. The guy's not a 5-hitter. So James, before we get to building our lineup here to kind of close out the show as we usually do here, a little bit of if I can find what I'm looking for, a little housekeeping here. As you know, we are now on the Better Sports Network, and right now the Better Sports Network has a great newsletter each day, better insights, which I actually do partake some content in. I wrote up the better play of the day the other day. It was the Wander Franco run. That one cashed for us here. Attention better fans, you can have the Better Sports Network newsletter emailed to you every day. The only place to get our daily better bet plus exclusive offers, program alerts, and special events, and our top moments. Register for free right now at bettersports.com. So go ahead, make sure you sign up at bettersports.com for the free newsletter. Again, you get a better play of the day. We cashed that one the other day, and it's actually done pretty well record-wise. So again, nothing wrong with signing up for something that's free. You get a newsletter sent right to your email each morning with a top bet of the day there. So go check that out. James, let's make our lineup here. We're starting with deGrom. I think that one's pretty obvious. Yep. We like Rodolfo Castro. We're slotting him at shortstop or second today.
Probably shortstop if you don't want to spend up for because I do like Ozzy Albies quite a bit at second.
All right. I love that too. We'll go Albies here. SP2, are we going value or are we going in Burns?
Let's use Corbin. I think Corbin Burns is live. seeing the strikeout upside and seeing Vegas, the odds like that 6.5 is -160.
Yeah.
I mean, that sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, we could talk by the end of the night, we could be talking about a guy with 10 plus strikeouts.
I agree with you there. We still don't have a Cubs lineup, but if we're going to catcher, are we spending down for Jan? Are we looking to spend up for the mid-tier guys like Diaz here or Sean Murphy? How are you feeling about catcher today?
It's probably Elias Diaz. I've told you kind of throughout this live stream that I'm on the Rockies more so than the Pittsburgh Pirates. And not to say I'm not on the Pirates. I've profiled Rodolfo Castro as one of my favorite plays, but like I love the Rockies against Rich Hill. Like Rich Hill stands no chance here. So
we got $3,900. I'm guessing we're gonna have to play Corbin Carroll because we like him anyways.
Yep.
$4,100 a player there for remaining. Who's your other Colorado play then? Are you trying to fit in a CJ Cron here? Jurickson Profar?
It's Profar.
Profar?
Yeah, I love Profar here.
$4,300 a play. We got a first base, a third base, and an outfielder. We can go an Oakland guy. Do you want to go Ruiz or Rooker? Or would you rather spend up?
I kind of like Ruiz, dude. Like Ruiz. he leading off. I love that. I love that spot.
We got 5K. I guess we're going CJ Cron here. Is that correct?
Yep. It's either Cron. Well, let's talk this through. It's Cron. It's basically
O'Reilly. Cron O'Reilly.
It's Cron O'Reilly, and the pivot off Riley is Brian Hayes, and the pivot off of Cron is probably Carlos Santana, right? That's probably like our pivots.
Yeah, I feel like Hayes better than Santana now.
Yes.
Okay. So that gives us an extra $900. We can get to Sean Murphy if we wanted to. We could move up and add additional salary on an outfield spot.
Connor Joe over Ruiz in cores. I mean, we're stacking the game.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, we don't have to. That's just what I'm.
Listen, it works. I like it. We want to get some of this exposure here to this game. We got a one-off on Corbin Carroll. We got a one-off on Ozzie Albies, and then we're just game stacking the 12 game total on the board. So chalky of us here, James. But for those of you that are watching, we certainly appreciate all of you tuning in here today. We got your lineup: Jacob deGrom, Corbin Burns, Elias Diaz, CJ Cron, Ozzie Albies, Brian Hayes, Rodolfo Castro, Corbin Carroll, Jurickson Profar, and Connor Joe is our lineup build here for this evening. So go ahead, sign up, check it out. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm All-Pro member package there, you see the scroll at the bottom, All-Pro Access. You get 50% off for the first 6 months using promo code MLB50. You go to fantasyalarm.com/all-pro. Promo code MLB50 gets you 50% off the first 6 months. That's access to all sports. It's not just MLB. It takes you right up through the NFL season. We have NBA playoffs still going on, NHL playoffs starting up, NASCAR DFS, MMA DFS, PGA DFS, the rest of the MLB season, and essentially the first month plus of the NFL season for just $20 a month. You get access to everything we have on site. And not only that, you get access to our premium Discord. You get access to myself, Grande, Vreeland, Colby Conway, Howard Bender's in there, Andrew Cooper's in there. We're all answering your questions, getting you guys ready for the remainder of the rest of the season here. So no better time than now to sign up for Fantasy Alarm to get the All-Pro access there, fantasyalarm.com/all-pro. Coming up after us here, James, myself and Coop, we recorded the Quick Out podcast for fantasy football, breaking down dynasty wide receivers and running backs. That's coming up. And then we have our guy, Edward Rouse, also with his Monday Night Rants show coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern. So no reason to leave the Better Sports Network if you're tuning in. Stay by with us here. James and I will be back tomorrow morning with the podcast, and then we'll be live on Tuesday. This has been the Quick Pitch MLB DFS live stream. Good luck, everybody. We'll catch you guys later.